Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Scott here. This is another episode of Mind Pioneer. I have with me today a very special guest, Terri Lonowski. She is the founder of Soulful Listening. She's an accomplished thought leader. Her body of work in evolutionary communication is timely, impactful, and deeply relevant, giving the chaos and disconnect in today's world. I want to tell her whole story in a minute, but first I want to welcome you to the podcast. Welcome, Terri.
Scott, I am so excited to be here and have been looking forward to our conversation. And sharing a little bit of insight with your listeners.
So you were the chair of the American Counseling Association Foundation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Representing over 40,000 professional counselors all over. Is this America or North
Nationwide,
America?
America,
Okay.
United States, yes.
Okay, I got a million questions about this. But you have a ton of incredible contributions. You led the National Human-Centered Design teams. Is that correct as well?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
which embraced empathy and design thinking to showcase workforce innovations. At the White House twice you've been. Okay, yes. This is crazy. And you've done TEDx stage in October. Later this year, you're going to be on TEDx stage to share your incredible message. So for anyone listening, we're about to talk to a guru in this industry. So counseling is something that's so near and dear to my heart. It has affected my life personally, my marriage in a lot of incredible ways. It's helped us through trauma. It's helped me become a 10x better entrepreneur and leader. So first of all, just thank you for the calling you chose to pursue. Some of my best friends are counselors and psychologists, and they're the nicest, sweetest people to talk to and get my problems out to.
You are so kind.
So tell us, for starters, kind of what you do in your day-to-day, your favorite thing about what you do, and how you got into it.
Right. So what I have evolved into is really focusing on evolutionary communication, which I have branded as Soulful Listening. I was just called to do this a few years ago, and it's kind of an interesting backdrop to that story. When I was at the White House with the human-centered design teams, and as you had mentioned, they really do key in on empathy. That's part of the methodology to look at evolving and changing and upgrading the kind of services they provide to their clients and customers. And I noticed that there was such power in empathy. And I saw stale programs flip on their ears. And I was so inspired by that. And I also took a deeper look and really realized that there are major missing pieces in how we are communicating. And then I was doing some reviewing some research for some of the projects I was on, and I came across a study that Cigna had done. And in Cigna's study, they found that over half of the American population is lonely. And it has the health implications of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Oh my gosh.
Which now
share that again.
Okay.
Half, because these stats are mind-blowing.
Yes.
Half the population is lonely.
Half of the American population reports being lonely. This is according to a study by Cigna.
Wow.
And
yes. What equates to 15 cigarettes a day? Just so I'm very clear what never to do again.
The loneliness.
The loneliness, just by being lonely.
Lonely, yes, being lonely, and it's well studied. And so, wow. Your listeners can look that up, but health implications of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and that has now surpassed the mortality of obesity.
Oh my goodness.
So,
so let's get into that for a second, because you just rocked my mind.
Okay.
Because I've always heard the stats of what sugar does to your body, like cigarettes, or what stress does to your body, like, or lack of sleep does to your body. It's like having a pack of cigarettes if you lose 10 hours of good sleep in a week or something like that.
Right.
I've never heard this idea of loneliness. So can you get into what happens in your body physiologically when you're lonely?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're designed as human beings to connect with one another. We thrive when we're seen and we're heard and we're supported by one another. And when we are not, it's devastating. And it may, represent itself in kind of, low level fight or flight all the time, because it's not natural for us to be so disconnected. And one would
Mm,
think with the technology that we have, that would not be the case,
right.
but it is so. It is so.
And staring at a screen is nothing like being face to face with somebody.
Right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely. And, and we're not having really good conversation skills modeled for us,
Mm,
whether it be in the home setting or at work. And so there's this ache and this disconnect, and there's dis-ease, which
mm.
represents in the form of disease.
Disease. Oh, I've never heard of
Right.
that either. Dis-ease is the same as disease.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. I've never heard that. 15 cigarettes for being lonely. Okay, so this I gotta share with you something personal for a minute. Uh I'm a different bird. All right. I'm a
Okay.
lefty. Okay. I have like a photographic memory. I was always like the kind of weird one in school. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't read until I was like 10. Like I just hated reading. And the only reason I passed kindergarten, first and second grade was because my twin sister was passing. And they were like, we can't hold him back. That would be terrible for his entire life. And so, they just sort of pushed me along. And then in third grade, I beat my teacher in chess. First time I ever played it. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, he's got something going on in there. He's actually really
Yeah.
smart. I started my first business in third grade. Now I'm this crazy serial entrepreneur with, hundreds and hundreds of
Mm,
employees and all these businesses. And um, I've always felt lonely. And I've
yeah.
always felt like, and I've been going through a lot of counseling lately, and I'll just tell, I don't have anything to hide to the world, but my counselors helped me realize that my unique ability in life is building this value for all these other people and building these companies that serves millions of people. But as I do it, I'm ostracizing myself and removing myself more and more from normal life. And it actually makes me feel more isolated and lonely. And so that which I was most gifted to give the world is actually causing me some of the most pain. And so we've been really working through that dichotomy in my own soul and my own heart
Oh,
because, and thank God I have my wife's incredible. We have very, very good close friends that are all entrepreneurs as well. My five best friends are entrepreneurs and we know everything about each other. So I'm actually really helping with that over the last several years and growing really deep, intimate friendships and caring friendships. And so yeah, I love this conversation because, there's a lot of people out there who might feel that way. You just said 50% of the population self-reports being lonely. And
right.
yeah, just thanks for sharing that because I can identify with that at times. Even though I have incredible friends, they might not know something or I'm struggling with something and I don't know who to
Mm.
talk to about it. So yeah, that's amazing. What are the main factors that are related to that 50% loneliness? What do you think it is?
Yeah, it's actually over 50%, and I think it's attributed to many things. And I'm gonna recount a book that I just recently read by Kate Murphy, and the book is let's see, who's listening, or something along those lines. But what she did, she went around the globe to 5 different continents, and among many questions, she asked, "Who listens to you?" And what she found was, in many cases, if people admitted, if they were honest, no one listens to them.
Hmm.
Or they may have, the lucky ones like you may have, your significant other or close friends. And then a large bulk of them said, if they were also honest, they paid to be listened to, whether it be
Hmm.
through a counselor, an astrologist, their hairdresser, whatever. And so that is, it's just another example that this is widespread.
Yeah.
And we could try and dissect all of the reasons. I think we can kind of guess some of them. And then with this, the course of this past 18 months, it would be even more so.
Yeah.
And so, where we are, with this chaos, with this different way of being, we're actually provided an opportunity, I believe, to up level
Mm.
and do things better. And I think that the pain is intense enough that there's motivation behind
To act. Yeah.
to act, to do better, to
Yeah.
find a way. Or, in my case, I've offered kind of a roadmap of navigating through to deeper connections, of sustaining, quality conversations and relationships. So,
Mm.
I just see, the two coming together at, the perfect storm, so to speak.
Yeah, and what you're doing is more important now than I think ever before,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you look at what's going on, there's a lot of pandemics happening right now,
Yeah.
right? It started with the virus, but I think, you know, some of my work is, we work with millions and millions of elementary, middle, and high schoolers, and just seeing what's happening just in the last year, right? Their
Hmm.
paradigms have
Hmm.
completely shifted. They're all moving virtual, which, like we said earlier, does not connect as much. And what sort of skills are they learning, and all these kinds of things. So, what you're doing, I think, is more valuable now than I think at any time ever in history. And I do think the pain point is high enough. I think a lot of people are trying to
Right.
find a
Right.
solution instead of drugs or depression or suicide or whatever it would be. Hopefully they can find a solution in this. So can you tell me about Soulful Listening? I want to know what this process and program is.
Okay, sure. I'll go. There are 5 elements of soulful listening. I think it would be helpful to go through those.
Yes, please.
But I want to give you just a little personal backstory before we get into that, and what inspired me beyond the professional experiences and what I've learned along the way in my own relationships. It really was from my grandma Helga. And if each of us are lucky enough to have a grandma Helga in our lives, we're very blessed. And I grew up in a small country town in Nebraska, population of about 3,000. And I lived on the second floor of a mansion, which may sound extraordinary. But when I say second floor, it's because my family had turned the first floor into a hustling, bustling restaurant. And beneath my bedroom every night was banging and clanging and late night bar crowds and chaos.
Wow.
And so what I wanted more than anything was to, although I couldn't even name it because I was so young, but was to be heard by somebody,
Hmm.
to be seen. And I was very fortunate. There was one person that did, and that was my grandma Helga. And what was unique about grandma Helga is you felt her presence. She had a way of coming to you from overflow, where she took care of herself, and she was in a position therefore to bring out the best in herself and everyone else around her.
Hmm.
And so when I was in high school, I had that guidance counselor conversation about what are you going to do next. And my high school guidance counselor said, Terri, you're a small town girl. You get lost in a big city like Lincoln, Nebraska. So you need to go to secretarial school and work for your family business.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure we each have had people speak limitations into us.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I was able to go to Grandma Helga and bounce that lie off of her. And it told her the story, and she just kind of presenced herself and leaned back a little bit. And she said, Terri, look at all I've done without education.
Hmm.
Think of what you can do with it. At that moment, the trajectory of my life shifted. And I'm imagining that many of your listeners can recall a time when somebody had spoken possibility into them.
Mhm.
And that makes all the difference in the world. But, as I, became a professional and, was struggling with this issue of their major missing pieces, I reflected back upon Grandma Helga and thought, what is it that made her so present? And it was the fact that she had taken care of herself. She set healthy boundaries. She had, a way of setting the stage for our interaction. In
Yeah.
her case, there would be these wonderful aromas wafting from the kitchen. And when she would sit down, it was just the two of us in this
Mm.
bubble. And so I took that with me in my life. And that's how I've interacted, with people along the way. But connected to soulful listening, what I came to realize that the first element, which is self-care, is vital to communicating with another, to being able to be present with another person. And, oftentimes there's confusion on what that means. I mean, some people may think it's a bubble bath, and
Yeah.
it could be. That could be one thing.
Yeah.
But if we, take a step a little bit further back, we can look at practices like meditation,
Hmm.
like going for a walk, like observing nature, like eating properly.
Yeah, that's great.
And so, yeah. And so,
I'm writing these down. That's why.
yeah.
I love that. She basically set the boundaries for her life. She
That's
set
it.
like the rules
Yes.
for her life that were, the word that comes to my mind is peaceful, right?
Right. With that, there can come a sense of serenity because you're not grasping and, pushing the boundaries yourself or, aggravated with how your life is.
Right.
You're really empowered and setting healthy boundaries, fueling yourself with ways. Maybe it's creativity that you need. And, if your job doesn't provide that, certainly taking an opportunity in your leisure time to cultivate that, to fill your cup up so that you give from overflow. So that
Mm.
is the first element of soulful listening,
That's great.
self-care.
I love that. My grandma always used to say, you can't breathe life into anybody if you're always out of breath.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, it's
That is brilliant.
one of my favorite quotes because it's so good. If you're running around huffing and puffing and how can you breathe life into anybody else? And I thought about that. I always think about that, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
where are your
right.
buckets, right? Are you taking care of yourself?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I was talking to someone yesterday who also said self-care is not selfish. Self-care is
Oh,
selfless, right? Like
oh,
that's,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I love that it's not selfish. In fact, it is, in my opinion, it's a gift you give others.
yeah,
Not only yourself, but a gift that you give others, because then you are resourced. You have something to give another person. You have something to give yourself. You're
mm,
able to tap into your higher way of being. If you're
yeah,
so depleted, I mean, if we're a wreck, we can't be there for ourselves, let alone another person.
right.
But anyway,
I know you're right. You're right.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so self-care, that's number one.
Number one. Number two is becoming fully present. And that, although that may sound abstract, it makes so much sense. I'm sure we've all been in conversations where you can almost hear the word bubble above somebody's head, where you can see the laundry list that they're thinking of, anything other than being right there with you.
Mm.
And so to become fully present, again, it may sound a little abstract. And for me, it's taking a couple of deep breaths. So I would like to invite you
Let's do it.
and your listeners to join me. We're going to take 3 very intentional breaths. And as we're doing that, I would invite you to notice the warmth in your heart area. So let's begin. Take a breath in, hold, and out. One more. In, hold, and out through your mouth. And the third one, in through your nose, hold, and out through your mouth. How simple was that? And I've just felt the energy shift between the two of us.
Yeah.
It's that easy to do. You don't even need to make any big announcements. Just do it. Take a breath. Tune in. Because when we truly take care of ourselves and we become fully present, we bring a quality of grace and, and compassion into every interaction.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. So needed.
that's good. And
So
it's
valuable.
free too. Free. Taking breaths is free. You don't have to
It's
pay
free. No
$1,000 for
equipment
that.
needed.
That's right.
Yes. And then the third element is kind of a hybrid of active listening and empathy. So for me, if the two of those had a child, it would be this element of soulful listening. Um, Empathy alone isn't enough. Active listening alone isn't enough. You really need both.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
And
good.
the empathy, I love this Native American poem that goes like this: walk a mile in my moccasins for 2 full moons, so you know where they pinch. Walk a mile in my moccasins for 2 full moons, so you know where they pinch.
Mm,
And by doing that, the active listening and the empathy, and you're present and you've taken care of yourself, just imagine the quality of your interaction in that moment.
mm,
And when we connect with one another in this way, and we're having a deep conversation, and it's not a therapy session, it's really, like kind of diving in and seeing where another person is coming from, holding the space for the conversation to unfold as it will.
yeah.
You'll usually, some insights will be gained
Yeah.
of some sort. And so the fourth element is inspired action. Because when we have this kind of quality conversation, we may have we may have an awareness how we can make a phone call on somebody's behalf. We can maybe introduce somebody to someone else. So it's the point that you offer this no strings attached. Yeah, inspired action.
That's beautiful.
And the
Okay.
fifth, yeah, and the fifth pulls it all together, and that is the feedback loop. That's when you let another person know you've got their back. You've taken some action on their behalf. Or maybe you they shared a really great idea. Maybe it was in the workplace and you have now elevated it. No strings attached. They get the credit. You let them know what's going on. And the reason that's so important, sometimes we have the really good conversations. People are nodding their head. You feel heard. And you think, this is great. And then you hear nothing else. So that falls short. So by doing this whole kind of a comprehensive way of interacting with the person,
Yeah.
it embeds integrity in your relationship. Imagine that cycle repeating over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then then it's a safe environment, a safe container to open up even further. When you know you're being heard, when you know your ideas are valued. Maybe it's a child, maybe they have revealed something to you and you're able to take action on their behalf. And then you let them know. Imagine how that affects the quality and the depth of your relationship as a parent and a child. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that 5-step process is so simple. I think it's also so rare, right?
Yeah.
So many people have their own list. I mean, I even have that. Like I'm thinking of your conversation. I'm going to talk to my executive assistants and say, "Hey, can you guys please give me 15 to 20 minutes between calls? I would really like some time for self-care and to be fully present." I'm going to act on that. Like that's the plan.
Oh,
Just
wow.
just on your thinking, because like even this interview, I was, several minutes late because we were finishing up some crazy thing, and it's very hard to focus your mind when you're going in a million directions, and that's not fair. That's not loving. And what I want to do in these interviews is show care and love, and how
Ah,
interesting somebody is and how valuable what they have to offer is to the audience. And so what you're saying is so valuable to so many people, including myself, right? It's such a good reminder to me. I Sometimes I think people have their own agenda all the time, and you can smell it. And it just,
yeah, yeah.
but then you can see the opposite when somebody almost doesn't have an agenda and they're just there to hang out with you and hear you and care about you. It's so fulfilling. It's so satisfying, so
Mhm, mhm.
energizing when you have those types of conversations. I
Be
Yeah.
beautifully said, beautifully said. And to me, listening in this way, listening is love in action. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, my young life leader said once when I was younger, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Well said.
And
Well said.
I've always taken that with me, just because, you really need to show care to people. And it's not for any other reason but to love them and to care about them, because I think every human should be loved that way and served that way. And that's great. So, okay, I have a practical question,
Okay.
because you're the guru here. Do you have maybe some like physical tips on how to empathize, like body language or words to say or atmosphere? Like, what are some tips there on how somebody can be practically, because I know a lot of people who listen to our podcasts they always say, you gave like these 3 things that were like, oh my gosh, and now I do that with my eyes, or I say that like this way, or I sleep this way with this not in my room. Like, so what sort of practical tips do you have for like physical way that you can
Yeah.
position yourself, the way you say something, your tone, or are there tips that you have for us?
One of the things that I would share would be to become fully present. Like we did the breathing, get in your body, get in the room, get in that conversation, hold the space for it to be what it is. I'm sure we all have had those moments where we play a script out in our head. He'll say this, I'll say that, it's going to end like this. It
Right.
never goes well when you do that. So I would say if you're in that space, just don't even have the conversation right now. Save it for another moment. So, emotional intelligence, when you're aware of your own emotions, I think
Mm.
that's really important too. So when you ask, what can we do to be more empathetic to somebody? And that really is, check in to see what your triggers are, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
check in, uh, have the wide range of emotions, feel them, just don't act on them,
Yeah.
in an inappropriate time.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It
Does that help?
does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people want to be good listeners. They just might not
Mhm.
have their first couple of steps to prepare them. But yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And so, again, going through the 5 steps, taking care of yourself first so that when you're stepping into doing things in a more evolved way, you're resourced to do it.
Mm,
Like I'll keep going back to the self-care, because then you have a bigger bucket to draw from.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then take a breath and just really listen, let go of the laundry list, be in the room. You mentioned it earlier that you can tell when somebody's vested in your conversation or not.
Yep.
We all can.
Yeah.
Whether we can put words to it, we may feel agitation, we may just, get triggered a little too easily.
Right.
So I would invite your listeners to pick one conversation over the course of this next week with one person in their life that they care about connecting with.
Yeah.
Take a breath, listen. If you hear an indication of a way you might be helpful, jump in and do something and just see
Yeah.
what that feels like after a couple of times of doing it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. I think, I already have a bunch of tips. I can't even imagine what our audience is thinking right now. This is cool. So, okay. So without giving it away, I want to hear about this TED Talk in October. What are some of the topics? Obviously, I think I know the topic, but is there a specific angle you're going to be taking in the presentation?
Right. We're kind of told not to talk about the talk. So
Oh,
what
okay.
I will say is the theme for the event is next. So given that communication's kind of my area of emphasis, so we'll be looking at the next evolution of communication. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Who is okay, fine. Fine by me. We'll wait till October.
October, and then it should be released by the end of the year. But I would invite your listeners to just check my website, and we'll be, announcing it there as soon as it's available.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Well, we can talk about the White House trips that you did. I want to
we
hear about
can.
that now. Okay, so because that already happened, and we'll put notes. We'll put notes into for the listeners who, because they're going to be listening to this for years. So we'll put the notes
Oh,
into the
thank
TED
you.
Talk for
Yeah.
everybody. But what was it like showcasing the workforce innovations at the White House? Like, I want to
Yeah.
hear. Were you like
Right.
security clearance? Did you meet the president? When was this?
Okay, it was a few years ago, not long ago, but a few years ago, and it was inspiring and an honor, quite frankly, an
Yeah.
honor to be involved with, work and projects that gleaned attention from that level. So I will say that. And then it was personally inspiring to me to see, the impact of empathy.
Hmm.
When you see, I don't know, gosh, it's just like when innovation can get legs and start manifesting
Hmm.
into the infrastructure within government. It was just awe-inspiring.
I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah.
love it. And so how long ago was this?
This was 6 years ago.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, 6
So
years ago.
pre-Trump, pre-Trump
It
era.
it was. It was.
I would love to see uh an empathy training for Trump. I think that would be so funny to me. I I'm much more of like a libertarian, but I think that all politics should go through like required empathy training. I would love to see that in all areas of political discussion, because then I think then it can turn from
Yeah,
partisan politics into actually listening to one another, right?
yeah.
I
And
was asked,
that's where the power lies, is when we hear one another. It doesn't mean we need to agree, but, courageous, difficult conversations are where the fruits of change lie.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's courageous, difficult conversations are where the fruits of change lie. I love that. That's so not happening today.
yeah, yeah,
It's probably why people feel so lonely. Everyone feels like they're enemies with half the world, and no one gets me, and I'm
yeah,
behind a screen, and so I can either in anger say whatever I want, or in pain not say anything, right?
yeah,
That's a lot of what's happening in the digital world. Trust me, I'm at the forefront of building technology for the whole world, and
yeah,
so it's like
yeah.
self-policing, trying to build technology that's good technology that actually helps people engage in life and engage in community. We're building community apps right now for creators and superhero people and kids, and so yeah, what you're saying just resonates so deeply with the
Mhm.
audiences we're trying to serve.
Right, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about technology and communication.
Yes,
Can
please.
we go down that avenue,
I would
and
love to.
and maybe like just kind of share a possibility on using it to embed deeper connection. So you've mentioned children a few times,
Yeah,
and
so
you've mentioned your yeah, go ahead.
we're building several things right now. What I can tell you about is we're building a banking app for kids.
Oh, I love
It's
that.
called myfirstsale.com. People can go there, check it out. The app will be done later this year, but basically we're creating like a kids teaching kids about financial literacy
Mm,
community. And so imagine like a way for kids to make money doing gigs in their neighborhood, calling it kid gigs, and sell a product like a Shopify page in an app. Like just they get a debit card to spend the money. We're teaching them all about setting goals and financial literacy of saving and budgeting. It's
ah,
auto investing, auto giving to any charity they want, hook up like a Google search. The whole thing is just brilliant. But the piece that's tying it all together is that kids don't really care about money necessarily because their basic needs are met, but what they care about is teaching other kids what they've learned. And
oh,
so we are going to be building an entire leaderboard style where kids like can get challenged by family and friends to do things like, read a book for $10 from grandma, or watch a video on, PragerU or some other video that the grandparents pay them $10, and all the kid has to do is share what they learned, a paragraph or a 30-second update of what they learned on their page,
uh-huh,
their whole community. And so it's kids like encouraging other kids, and
love that.
kids collaborating with other kids, and kids teaching other kids, and just building that fun community. I think it's going to be so inspiring. It's going to fight against loneliness for sure, but I also think it's
Yeah.
going to empower kids for the next generation. If a kid can learn that they can make something with their own hands or serve someone
Mm,
else,
mm.
and the other person values it, even enough
Oh,
to pay
wow.
them for it, like the kid has confidence for life, right? Like you actually have listening skills when you serve customers, right? So we're teaching
Oh, you
kids to
have to,
like
yeah.
to sell, and we're teaching kids to build businesses and do fun chores in their neighborhood to reach their bike or Lego goal, right? So it's really fun. That's one of them that I'll share. I won't talk about the rest, but I do have a good friend, BJ Fogg. He was on our podcast before. He has the Behavior Institute, and he talks about this all the time about you can get anybody to do anything with the right motivation, abilities, and prompts. Like if the motivation is
Right.
high enough and the ability to do it's low
Mhm.
enough and you have the right prompt, anyone can get over the action line to do anything. And technology has sort of taken that in the wrong direction, right? To isolate people, to get them
Mhm.
addicted to the slot machine, swipe up, and I really keep people from listening to each other. But then there's other good tech that can be built to really encourage like great discussion and great panels and great
Mhm.
fun trivia games and fun live discussion, live streaming. And so we're doing a lot of that building right now. We're trying to call it good tech is like our goal. So
Well, I applaud you in that, and I love the financial literacy. That is so important, and I could go on and on and on about that. But bravo, bravo on that. And then I could just kind of like maybe talk low tech,
yeah, yes,
like low
please.
tech. Let's say family. We're wanting to have more engagement. We're wanting to demonstrate on how technology can be used to connect. And
Yep.
so how about over the course of an entire month, so take 30 days and have the family get together and decide that they're going to send like maybe one sentence text or email or whatever to somebody that they know. And so together, maybe they send something to Aunt Alice and say, Aunt Alice, you make the best cookies and you're so fun to be around. Done. So it takes just a nanosecond to
Right.
do. But just imagine what does that do beyond Aunt Alice receiving this?
Mm,
Well, dad and son have had a moment of actual conversation
yeah,
to make this happen. And then just imagine the outpouring of love and the receiving of love from these short notes.
I love it.
And what would the conversation at dinner be like a couple weeks into this?
I love it.
And then what it would be like at the end of the month. And now we have a habit.
What if we build an app where before you can enter any sort of social media, you have to send an encouragement to somebody.
Ooh,
And
yes.
I just thought of this right now. Like, what if before you go into Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, I don't know, or TikTok or Snapchat, any of them, there's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
API that's built into it that you can put in your phone that's just like, before you do this, send a video or text of love and encouragement, and it can even pop up somebody to encourage that you haven't talked to in a while, or maybe it's somebody who's in your main contacts. Like, how cool would that be?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Anyway,
Yeah. How
that's a
fun.
great way. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a way to kind of redirect how we're using technology or how we're interacting with one another. And another thing that I like to encourage people to do, and that is have a gratitude practice of some sort. And this is certainly part of self-care and building oneself up. And one of the people that attended one of my workshops, let me know like a week later, she had taken the gratitude bowl that I had suggested, only she put it on her kitchen counter. And she had like a couple of teenagers, and they had like a lot of teenage friends that would come over. And so they were curious, well, what is this? And so she shared with them, I have these cards and I write something that I'm grateful for.
Mm,
So the teenagers started doing that. And that became a focal point of conversation and gathering. So how
I
fun is
love it.
that?
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh, I got a million things in my head. We don't have to. Okay, I love it. Okay, so a couple more questions before we jump off, but I want to hear, um, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received in your whole life?
Mhm. Yeah. It goes back to Grandma Helga.
Grandma Helga.
I have
Okay.
to bring her in the room one more time. A wise, wise woman. I think I was in my early 20s and I was struggling with something, like making a decision and, wondering if I was enough to do whatever this was. And she just again got calm, presenced herself and said, Terri, all you have to do is decide what you want to do and then take steps to do it.
Hmm.
Period.
Wow.
Yeah.
All you have to do is decide what you want to do and
And
then
then
take steps to get there. Wow. That's profound.
that is profound. And in its simplicity,
Yeah.
is so packed with a way to live life. So I have taken that with me throughout my life and, have found sometimes the hardest thing to do is to decide
Right.
what I want to do. And
Wow.
so to give quality time and intention to that decision making is powerful. and then start taking the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, you are a brilliant person, actually. Thank you for your time. What's the best way people can find you? What website, social media can you share with us? We'll put it all in the show notes.
Sure, perfect. My website is soulfullistening.com. One word, soulfullistening.com.
Mhm.
My Instagram is soulful listening.
There you go.
And then LinkedIn would be my name, Terri Lonowski.
All right. I love it. Lonowski,
That's it.
Lonowski.
And
Uh,
Terri.
RRI. You guys can find her on Instagram. Please go follow her. She has brilliant stories, brilliant posts. She's an amazing woman. And thank you so much for your time. It's soulfullistening.com, right?
That's it. Yes.
Soulfullistening.com. This was great. I really, really appreciate it. I have a note to talk to my EA Shayna after this and for her to pass the note on to everybody else to give me the space to start to practice these 5 steps, to be fully present and to care for myself so that I can actively listen and care for other people and give good feedback too. So thank
Beautiful.
you again. Anything last that you want to leave everybody with on the good note
Oh,
before we
no,
end?
I guess my last comment would be um, start small and start. Take a breath and listen.
I don't even want to talk. This is so good. Drop the mic. All right. That's perfect. Start small. Listen and go. Thank you. Oh my gosh. All right, Terri. I appreciate all your time. You are a gem. Thank you for all that you do, not just on the boards you serve on and all of the help that you can give, but your life calling is so needed. I consider you guys as another version of frontline workers. So thank you for everything that you do for the world. We deeply appreciate it. And I think our audience loved it as well.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks again. Have an awesome day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time on the next episode.